Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
Opened the books, I studied, took a bunch of practice exams, retook the exam and practiced. Got my license in October of 1997.
Wow.
I'm sorry, 1997, 2007. And we all know what happened. We found out now. Fast forward to 2010, going backwards, that the market crashed in October of 2007, which led to the crisis of 2008 and 9.
Yeah.
And so that's basically what happened and how I got my license. And the real estate school never opened because of the crash.
Yeah.
And I got a job for about 2 more years working, building offices. I pivoted and worked in escrow to help these owners out. And I was getting money. They were paying me. And I was on a draw. So they paid me a bunch of money so I could pay my rent and my car payment and all my bills, and said, okay, now you got to go sell houses. And I was like, and every time you sell a house, you're going to write a check for 20% and pay us back. And I was like, it was a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money that I was paying back because of my salary. And I'm like, I don't even know how I was going to do this. Well, after 2 years, I remember it was like December of 2009. They said to me, we have to shut this down. There's no more work at the escrow company. Nobody's like selling houses. You have a choice. You can become a realtor and like figure this out, or you can go back into film producing and see what happens. And again, say that little voice. They call it the drunk monkey, backseat driver on my shoulder going, you know what? Everything that I really put my heart and my mind into, I actually make work. It's been that way my entire life. So I said to myself, okay, and there was a class coming up at this brokerage, and I took the class, and the brokerage actually paid for it, and then you'd pay them back if you sold some houses. I got into this class, and 3 weeks into this class, I was sitting there at 4:40 on a Friday doing what the class told me, staying in the space of real estate. Everybody else was partying for the weekend. Phone call came into the receptionist, and the receptionist yells, hey, does anybody know anything about short sales? And funnily enough, I had taken a certification class, and I was a certified short sales specialist.
That's awesome.
It was cost me, $500 or whatever. And I knew about them a lot. And so I answered the phone call. I did exactly what the class was telling me. The guy said the property was listed with another agent. I said, oh, I can't talk to you because it's out of integrity. Who's the agent? And he said a name like Mike Litton. And I was like, oh, I don't know him. They're like, well, he's in your office. I'd never heard of him. And there was like 400 people in my office. And I said, I'm sorry, unless your listing is expired, I can't talk to you. And he said, what time is it? And I said, it's actually 5:02. He's like, great. I can talk to you now because my listing expired at 5:00 on today's date. And so I literally turned the whole conversation around. I said, would you like me to come to you, or would you like you to come to me? He goes, I will drive you. He drove from Beverly Hills to Marina Del Rey, sat in my office. I signed a listing agreement. It was a short sale. I negotiated the deal because I knew what I was doing. I contacted a lawyer friend of mine. We did it together. And from contract to close, found the buyer. And in 21 days, I made more money because the bank gave me a bonus because it was about to be foreclosed upon. I made more money in 21 days than I had made in an entire year. And I got that check, and I was like, my eyes. I was like, because I didn't know what the bonus was. I didn't know it. So I got that check, and it was like almost $100,000. And that was my first listing. And then I'm like, okay, I can live off of this for the entire year. I think I can do something with this. And that was 2010. I incorporated my business in 2013, and here we are 14 years later of being a real legit business. And I've had my license since 2007. So
awesome. So at some point you started helping your sellers to remodel and update their homes.
Yes.
Talk about how that happened. It's something that those of us in the industry are seeing as a trend. We talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, just because it's a phenomenon, right? There's $98 trillion of wealth being passed from baby boomers to their millennial kids and grandkids. And a lot of that is real estate, right? 90% of it's real estate. And the millennials don't want it. Millennials don't trust real estate because when they were children, they were going through that financial crisis that you were talking about, and they watched people around them lose their homes. So talk about a lot of this real estate that they're inheriting or is being transferred to them is outdated. It never was updated, right? And so talk about how that started, and then talk about how fulfilling that is.
So, not too long after I decided to go into real estate, a friend of mine, my sphere of influence, called me up and said, she was in trouble. I needed some help. And so my first place is coming from contribution of how can I fix this? Nobody wants anybody to lose their house. So I automatically go into fix mode of how can we save your house? And after a few weeks, she said to me, I don't care. I'm too much in debt. I just want to start all over. What can we do? So I ended up selling her house. And I ended up calling a friend like you in a different county and asking that person if they wanted, would you be interested in buying this house? Or here's an opportunity. We get calls and texts all the time from investors, from flippers, all this stuff. But we, as the people that's not our job to be an investor and flipper, I feel like kind of lose out. So I made one phone call and called this person and asked them if they wanted to be the buyer. And they said, absolutely. And so ended up doing that. And then they came to me and they said, it's funny, I don't know what to do with this. And so I said, well, there's nothing really wrong with it. It could just use a little bit of a refresh.
Yeah.
And they said, well, how much is that going to cost? I said, I don't know. We could price it out. So I went over there. It was a little condo in the valley. And, they only paid $115,000 for it. It was tiny. But I also knew that with some right tweaks, we could do it. So I helped them get a painter. We put new linoleum on the floor. We touched up the cabinets, put some new fixtures in. The whole thing cost about 12 grand. So they paid 115, put 12 grand into it. They put it on the market, sold it. And that profit was about $150,000. And the light bulb again went off when, the Staples button, that was easy. I mean, literally, it was just like breathtaking. And so that person and I have gone on to do many deals together, even though they live in a different county. We've found properties and we fixed them up and we have sold them. So that was my first taste. And then you're like, it's too good to be true. So can I do it again? So I started telling people. I think agents go through this thing where they are secret about if they're switching from a job. Like nobody wants to go from a lawyer to being an agent and being like, I'm an agent now. So I started telling people, look, if anybody needs any help on any projects, maybe we could partner together. Because at the time, I didn't have a boatload of money to be buying houses. Yes, I could afford to buy a $115,000 house 20 years ago, but that's just a lot of money. And then to put the fix up money in it and the selling and the closing costs, all that. So as properties grew in price, it became harder and harder. Like in the state of the union, if they were true flips, getting a loan was sometimes hard because they weren't habitable. So I went through a whole myriad of things to get there. But I remember the second property I did, I had told some people that I had met through my office, but weren't in my office, like a woman's group, that I was sort of doing this. And they asked me like what my niche was or my niche. And I was like, well, I love historic homes. I love craftsmen's, mid-century mods, Victorians. I come from Michigan. Everything is old. I'm sitting in my 1910 Craftsman right now with my mid-century modern light behind me. But so she brought me an opportunity and said, look, I have this place. It is a short sale and I am the listing agent. Would you like to be the buyer? And I said, absolutely. Let me figure this out. So I figured out how to go get a loan. I was my own corporation, and I did the same thing. And I ended up doing 3 more projects where I spent less than 15 grand. And my ROI, one of them was 35% and one of them was 40%. And so
Mhm.
I'm just a minimal investment. Oh, and then because I'm an agent, I also negotiated into the deal that I was the buyer, but I also wanted to be the co-listing agent on the other side. And
Right.
so I feel like we just started to share. So like that was how I got into it. And then I
Mhm.
was like, well, this is great. But as the houses became more expensive, they became harder for me to buy. So
Yeah.
I started partnering with people. And then this is where it truly happened. When I figured out there was a need for it. So I was called to a listing and I was the 5th agent in for a listing appointment.
Mhm.
And this couple said to me, look, I'm just going to tell you like it is. We've met with 4 other agents. Now here's me like, okay, so why are you meeting with me? And they
Mhm.
said, I don't know, like it doesn't really feel right. I would just like, take your realtor hat off and put your Rebecca hat on as a real person and as a friend of our neighbors, because we know you sold our neighbor's house, which is how we got to you. Tell us what you would do. And, what would you do? And so I literally did. I put the realtor hat off and I said, look, your house is great. And it is a little bit outdated. I know your house, according to Zillow and Redfin and everything, is worth, we're just going to call it $1 million.
Mhm.
That's what everybody tells you. Am I correct? And they're like, yep, that's about what everybody tells us. The thing is, I've got some comps around here at 1,213. And I go, would you like to know how we could get there? And they're like, you can't get there. Like, we've been told by 5 people that our house is worth $1 million.
Mhm.
I said, it's worth $1 million because the shape that it's in, not because
Mhm.
you're in a great area. And I have 3 comps over 1.2.
Mhm.
What if I could get you to spend a little bit of money and we could get there? And they said, oh, I don't know. Like, how much is a little bit of money? When people think remodeling, they think hundreds and hundreds of thousands of
Yeah.
dollars. They said,
Major, right?
what do you propose? And I said, well, from eyeballing it, and I could have my team come over here, but I think if we spent under just under $50,000, well, what would I get for that? I'm going to tell you what we're going to get for that. You're going to get all new floors because your floor doesn't match. You're going to get your kitchen cabinets painted. You're going to get new quartz countertops. You're going to get a new sink. You're going to get all new fixtures. You're going to get the outside painted, and your curb appeal isn't great. I'm going to change the outside facade of your house. I'm going to cut down all the overgrown trees and bushes, and I'm going to plant beautiful things and flowers. And I'm going to create something where people drive by and they stop their car and they take pictures because it's going to look so amazing. They're going to be intrigued about going inside. And they said, I don't know how you could do that for $50,000. We just did a bathroom over and it costs $50,000.
Mhm.
I said, I have 3 clients I've done this for. I will happily give you your phone number. I will ask them if they'll talk to you. If you'd like to speak to them, they're like, no. We trust you. You came from our neighbor. You sold our neighbor their house and they love you. So we're in. So they actually had the money, which was great. Did exactly what I said. For $50,000, I revamped the whole entire house. I listed it for $1,150,000.
Mhm.
3 weeks after we listed it, we closed at $1,425,000.
Yeah.
So we went from them netting like 100 grand to now their net after I was done with them, after paying the $50,000, was over 400 grand.
Yeah.
And it's almost too good to be true. They cried when they got the offer. They cried when we closed. And then after we closed, I interviewed them and I said, what are you going to do? And they're like, we have 2 kids, and one of them is in high school and one of them is about to go to college. And we were trying to figure out how we were going to pay for their school and getting financing and all the stuff. Like, we are going to pay for their college, and you are going to let our children be completely debt free
Mhm.
and give us the money to buy another house so that they'll have something to inherit. And like, literally, you have changed our lives in a matter of less than 2 months. And we never
Mhm.
thought that was possible. And that is the reason I get up every morning.
Yeah.
That normal, regular people, these guys
Mhm.
were millionaires. Yes, they lived in a nice house, but I forgot to tell you that they only paid 400 grand and they'd lived there for 20 years and had
Yeah.
2 kids. So that extra money was the difference. And those lovely people have referred me so many clients, and I've done the same thing over and over and over
Yeah.
again. And more
Yeah.
than money, I would rather have the other clients and help them, because that money always is going towards something, whether
Yeah.
it's to upgrade them to their next house, maybe to buy a vacation home, to pay off their kids' college, to buy the boat or car they've always wanted. Or one person was just like, I've made so much money. They were going to tithe over $100,000 to their preferred charity. And like my heart just like breaks wide open and goes,
Mhm.
this is the reason Rebecca gets out of bed every day, because I
Yeah.
love to make people feel good and make a difference in their lives.
Well, and you're creating value. And I think it's important that we talk about that for a second. So one of the things that I'm a big believer of after, being in the business for 32 plus years is I've been promoting homeownership every minute of all that time, and we're actually writing a book on it. And the reason we're doing it is because homeownership is a big deal. Homeownership changes lives, just like what you were talking about just now. And I think it's important that we talk about this because when people hear the numbers that you're talking about, they have a hard time grasping how you went from a million to 1,450,000. Like, how in the world did you get to that number, right? And I think it's important that we talk about it because it really is a human nature deal where so imagine this. Imagine a couple is working, they're oftentimes working more than 40 hours a week each. They're building up their career, they're building up their business, they're working very, very hard. They've been blessed with some income, they've been blessed with some credit, they've been blessed with some assets, okay? And they decide that they're ready to upgrade to a new home. And I'm not talking new in terms of new construction, I'm talking new to them, right? They're
Right.
ready to upgrade to the next level. It could be because they have family, it could be anything, right? But they're ready to do that. And why would they come in and look at a house in an area where houses are selling for $1 million and pay 1,450,000 for it? The answer is they come in and they look at it and it's move-in ready. They don't have to do anything. The magic of what you're doing is you're creating value not just for the seller, but you're creating value for the buyer too. Because really, when it comes down to this, we've never been busier ever in our lives than we are now, especially in Southern California, where you have to have two incomes. Sometimes you have to have three. Sometimes you have to have four income streams going just so that you can make ends meet, just so you can have a quality life, right? And these people will walk into these homes that are updated, that have the quartz countertops, they have the new sinks, they have new fixtures, they have the things that you did, right? The new flooring, all that. They have all of that, and they don't have to disrupt their lives to do it later. And this is one of those things where it's plug and play. But talk about for a second how important it is to a buyer, especially a buyer that's at that echelon, okay, as busy as they are and as much as they have going on, because you don't know, right? They could have a parent that's sick. They could have funerals that they're going to. They could have all kinds of things going on in their lives where they walk into this house and they go, oh, you know what? This is move-in ready. Builders have been doing this for decades, okay? Decades. I used to sell new homes in Tampa, Florida. And one of the model complexes that I had, one of the model homes that I had a base price, no joke, of $425,000. It had options and upgrades added to it that was another 475. No joke. $475,000 in options and upgrade, more than the value of the actual home, the base price, okay? They put everything but the kitchen sink, including the kitchen sink, in there, okay? And you walk in and you go, "Oh yeah, this is it. This is right. You're a buyer. This is it. This is where I need to land." Okay? There's a psychology to it. Talk about that for a second, because numbers that we use, and by the way, I've seen numbers like this a lot, and I've produced numbers like this. It's hard for people to understand unless you've lived it. And very few have. It's hard for people to understand how those numbers work. So talk about that psychology for a second of the buyer.
So I learned a long time ago, there are two types of people in this world, only
Mm,
two. There's the type that like it as is, and they want to put their own twist on it
Mm-hmm.
and willing to take 20 years. And there's the BYT generation. You know
Yeah.
what BYT is?
Yeah.
You know what BYT
Bring your
is?
toothbrush.
Bring your toothbrush.
That's it. That's it. I talk about that all the time because
Oh,
I tell people it's like they want to bring their dog, their kid, right? Their spouse, hopefully, and their toothbrush and their clothes. That's it. They don't want to, right? I've had people walk into staged homes. Some of that staged furniture is some of the lowest quality furniture in the world. It looks great. Okay.
you want to
But
buy it
they've
all.
walked in. Yeah. They've literally walked in to listings of mine and said, I want all of it. I want the furniture. I want, right?
Yep.
Those model homes that I had in Tampa, they would walk in and go, what can I do to just buy the whole thing?
Yep.
I'd go back to the builder and the builder's like, no, really? Right? Yeah, no, really. They want to buy that too.
Plug and play.
Yeah.
So that's part of the problem too. And here in Los Angeles County, where I sell most of my houses, and I'm sure it's the same in San Diego and Palm Springs, all over, we have so many rules and regulations.
Yeah.
If you do get something permitted, let's just say to add a bathroom, or you want to add a second story, it's going to take you like literally, if you're doing any construction, at least 12 months, if not 18. If you live anywhere near the water, we have coastal commission.
Yeah.
I just did a project over in Playa del Rey that everyone said, the contractor, everybody, 12 months. I was like, nope, coastal commission. We had to expedite permits. It took us 19 months. And you think about not being able to live in that house and how much money these people paid cash so like they weren't okay and they had another home nearby. But most people do not have that privilege.
Yeah.
Mike.
And how many people have lived in the middle of a construction site? Okay. With the dust and all the allergens and all the things that are, I mean, come on, you don't want to live there. You don't want to deal with all that. So when you walk into a home that's move-in ready, you will pay more for this. Okay. Right. And I literally had a friend of mine who's a big producer, one of the top real estate producers in the world here in San Diego, turned to me one day when he walked through one of the properties we had remodeled. He turned to me and he said, Mike, you spent extra money on this Carrara marble. Yeah, I did. He said, people will pay for that. You spent extra money on these faucets, on these fixtures. Yep, I did. You spent extra money on, yes, we did. People will pay for it. Don't ever shy away from putting quality improvements in a home because people will pay for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
There's one thing that people forget as well. Not only will they pay for it, but just to give you an example of the buyers, they weren't my buyers. They were represented by somebody else, but the people who bought this house for 1.425, do you know why they paid 1.425? Like honestly, why they paid 1.425?
Why?
Most people don't. Not only was the house awesome and they were wowed by everything, by how it looked, by the stage, by the presence. My first open house, there was 100 people in the house. Everybody, it's like Black Friday mentality. Everybody wants something that they can't have. You know, if we had an iPhone and they only made 10,000 of them and you could only get it on Black Friday, the line would be around the block, you know, to the freeway to get this phone because they're the same price.
Have you ever seen the line the day that the Apple phone comes out, the new iPhone comes out each year? The line goes for miles.
There are
from
no
one
sales.
store. There's crazy.
No sales on Apple phones. The phone is worth what the phone is set the price at. The difference in real estate, Mike, is that the price of a home is only worth not what you want, not what I want, not what my sellers want, what a buyer is willing to pay. And these folks, this cute little couple, I'm just going to say it, they were like 25 years old. They weren't from Los Angeles. And the reason they overpaid $400,000 for this house was because they knew it was a good area and they had lost out on so many other houses. And the pain of losing is greater than the pleasure of having to overpay. Because all I had to do while their agent, who is 25 years older than me, stood there at the open house. And I said to them, you might feel like you are overpaying if you're the top bidder, but in 2 or 3 years, this is what the house is going to be worth. And in 10 years, the house is going to double. And let me tell you, the house next door to them just sold for 2.5 million.
Oh, yeah.
And it hasn't even been 10 years.
Yeah.
So
how happy are they?
Oh, no. Listen, they're not my clients, but because my friends live a couple doors down, I have seen them on the street. They're now, they're
Yeah.
no longer 25, they're 35, but I
Yeah.
still get hugs, I get high fives. They
Yeah.
they actually, I swear on everything in my child, the wife like did the like I bow
Hmm.
to you because they know that they were chosen. And we had so many offers. My sellers were able, because it's their choice, they
Hmm.
had a great package.
Yeah.
But they wrote a letter, not violating any RESPA violations or anything, but they wrote a letter, who we are, how qualified we are, why we want to live here, and how nice your house is. And
Hmm.
they were the chosen ones. Not be They actually weren't the highest offer. They were just the easiest package to put together,
Yeah.
and the one that were guaranteed to close
Yeah.
because it was a
Stories
cash.
sell.
Yeah,
Stories sell. It's that simple. It's why we do what we do on the Mike Litton Experience. Stories sell,
that's
right?
right.
And
And
every single episode, your episode 243, every single episode has a story.
yes, and I truly believe that me painting that picture, and that's what I've really come to love, is that oh, sorry about that. I
Oh,
just,
I lost you for a second. There you are.
I don't know what happened there. I have painted the picture that I try to make all of my houses. Doesn't matter if it's a $500,000 condo or if it's a $4 million flip or whatever it is. You only get one chance to make a first impression.
Yeah.
You get one shot.
Yeah.
My photos have to be, I mean, I spend so much money. People have no idea what we as agents go through. I usually spend $3,000 to $5,000 marketing a property. And I'll spend that kind of money because I need Architectural Digest, Dwell Magazine photos. Even if I'm selling a $500,000 condo or
Yeah.
I'm leasing a $6,000 condo, I still do
Mhm.
a video. I still
Yeah.
do a floor plan. The more information I can give people and the more real the photos look, that I want them to get there and say it looks better in person than it does in the photo. I don't want
Yeah.
to like fish eyes and all these things and fake sunsets. If there's no sunset nearby, you're not getting a sunset in my twilight shots.
Right.
Feel like I'm very real and in
Yeah.
integrity to, like, people love the photos, like, wow. And then they come and the wow factor is even better because the lights are on, the furniture's in, cookies are baking, everything is perfect. And they fall in love and they think that
Mhm.
it's not possible. And when they understand that it is possible and they could be the one, they will do anything to be the one. And I mean, I haven't had a listing sit for more than a few days. The last 5 listings sold the very first open house. Buyer walked in the door. I want it. People standing in line going like, this is too good to be true. Can I be your backup buyer? Calling me every day. I mean, people are like, we're not in that kind of market right now. And I'm like, no, we are in that market. The difference is the houses have to be priced appropriately. Or no longer, people aren't paying $300,000 to $500,000 over asking right now. They were 2 and 3 years ago,
Mhm.
but when our interest rates kind of fluctuated a little bit,
Mhm.
that kind of came to an end. So now it's about pricing strategy. We're finding whatever we price it at, if it's correct, it will sell quickly. If
Yeah.
the pricing is not the right pricing, it's going to sit and sit and sit and sit. And
Yeah,
the owner,
pricing is more important now than it's ever been, but everything else has to be there too. And
yeah,
you have to remember it's about all the senses, right?
yes,
So the whole idea of the cookies baking and, what people smell when they walk in the door, that is a big deal. What they hear when they walk in the door is a big deal.
yep.
What they feel, pardon me, what they feel when they walk in the door, it's a big deal. Rebecca, I cannot thank you enough for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This is the fastest hour I've ever lived, and I've loved every second of it. We're going to put a link to your website in the description for the episode. I cannot thank you enough for the value that you're bringing to our industry and also to our consumers. And it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you and to get your story.
Thank you, Mike, so much. Thank you for having me. Been a pleasure. Love serving our community and love I feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of giants here. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing for us.
Thanks for being here. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.